Let's get started with today's deep dive, and we're going all the way to the Himalayas, to
Yeah.
Himachal Pradesh in India. We're going to be talking about forest fires, and we've got a whole bunch of research articles
Wow.
and news reports to go through. So,
Sounds like a lot of information.
yeah, so get ready. Our main question today
Yeah.
is, why are we seeing more and more fires in Himachal Pradesh?
Right.
And what can we do to protect the forests there
Yeah.
and the people who live there?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
It's a complicated situation, but that's why we're here.
Yeah, to break it down.
Exactly.
So think about this. Himachal Pradesh had an unbelievable number of forest fires in early 2022.
Boy.
Over 2,700 in just the first 3 months.
Wow.
That's the highest they've seen since 2007.
That's a lot.
So that's like, I can't even imagine.
Imagine 85 times the size of Central Park going up in smoke.
Wow.
Almost 57,000 acres burned.
Jeez.
And it's not just like a wilderness issue.
Right.
These fires are impacting people directly.
Yeah.
Like in the Solon district, fires spread from the forests
Oh, wow.
into towns, destroying homes and businesses.
So it's getting really close to where people live.
Yeah, very close.
So essentially what we're seeing in Himachal Pradesh is a bunch of different things
Okay.
coming together that are making it really vulnerable to these fires.
All right, so let's unpack that a little bit.
Yeah.
What are some of those things that are making this region such a tinderbox?
Well, first of all, the climate,
Okay.
Himachal Pradesh, has a really long dry season, like 7 to 8 months a year,
Wow.
where it's so dry that any spark could just start a huge fire.
So it's just waiting
It's like the whole place is holding its breath.
for something to set it off?
Yeah, exactly.
And then on top of that, you've got the human element.
Yeah.
Our sources are saying 95% of fires in Himachal Pradesh
Wow.
are human-caused.
95%, that's almost all of them. So we're
Mhm.
talking about things like campfires that are left unattended,
Right.
cigarettes that are tossed carelessly.
Even intentional burning for agriculture.
I see.
All these seemingly small things can just lead to these devastating consequences.
It's hard to believe that one little spark can lead to so much damage.
I know, it's crazy.
But it's not just human actions, right?
Right.
There's also the types of trees.
Yeah, the trees are definitely a big factor.
Yeah.
The main tree in Himachal Pradesh is the Chir Pine.
Okay.
And their needles, they dry out and they're incredibly flammable.
Really?
It's like having piles of kindling just scattered all over the forests.
So almost like nature is working against them?
Yeah, you could say that. And actually, there's a historical element to this too.
Okay.
The Chir Pine wasn't always so common.
Interesting.
In the past, there were more banjo trees,
Okay.
which were much more resistant to fire.
I see.
But people started replacing those oaks with Chir Pine
For what reason?
for resin tapping.
And that's made the forests way more likely to burn.
Exactly.
So it's almost like they unintentionally created the perfect fuel.
Yeah, kind of like a perfect fuel source for these fires.
Yeah.
That's a good way to put it.
Wow.
It's pretty crazy, huh?
Yeah, it's pretty unsettling to see how vulnerable Himachal Pradesh is.
It really is.
Yeah, it really makes you think about, like, the long-term consequences, you know?
Yeah.
What happens after the fire's out.
Yeah, it's not just the immediate damage.
Right,
The impact is really huge. It affects the environment,
right.
the economy, everything, really.
And we were talking before about how
Yeah.
the fires can actually speed up the melting of glaciers.
Oh, yeah.
That seems kind of counterintuitive.
It does. It sounds strange, but it's true.
Yeah,
The black carbon from the fires,
right.
it makes the glaciers darker.
Okay.
So they absorb more sunlight and melt faster.
Wow.
And of course, that's a big problem for water resources.
Right, of course, because that's where they get their water from.
Exactly.
It's amazing how everything is, like, connected.
It really is. It's all tied together.
Yeah, but let's switch gears a little bit and talk about solutions.
Okay, yeah.
Our sources talk about some really interesting approaches
Yeah.
being used both locally and globally.
Yeah, there's a lot happening, and I think one of the most promising things is getting the local communities involved.
Right, like that joint forest management program.
Exactly. That's a great example.
How does that work again?
Basically, it brings together the local people
Okay.
and the forest department to manage the forests together.
So it's like a team effort.
Yeah, a collaboration. And they train the locals in everything,
Oh, wow.
from fire prevention to how to actually fight the fires.
So they're really empowered to protect their own environment.
Exactly. It's about giving them the knowledge and the tools
Yeah,
to take care of their own backyard.
that makes a lot of sense. And it's been successful.
It has, yeah. In the areas where they've done this, the number of fires has gone down a lot.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, it shows you how powerful it can be to get the local people involved.
Absolutely. Now, what about technology?
Oh yeah, technology is a big part of it too.
Yeah, what are they doing in Himachal Pradesh?
Well, they're using satellite imagery
Okay.
to spot fires early on.
I see.
Organizations like the Forest Survey of India are using satellites
Wow.
to see where the hot spots are.
So they can put out the fires faster?
Exactly. It's like having a lookout in the sky.
Keeping an eye on everything.
Yeah, constantly watching for any signs of trouble.
That's amazing. So they're using technology to kind of stay ahead of the game.
Yeah, they're trying to, for sure. And they're using drones, too.
Drones?
Yeah, drones can fly over those hard-to-reach areas
Okay.
and get really good information.
What kind of information?
Like where the fire is, exactly how big it is, how much damage it's caused, things like that.
Wow.
And some drones have these special cameras,
Okay.
thermal cameras that can see heat,
Oh, wow.
so they can spot hot spots that people might miss.
So it's like a whole team of little firefighters up in the air.
Yeah, kind of. They're providing all this important information and support.
That's really impressive.
It is. It's pretty cool technology. But technology alone isn't enough.
Right.
We also need to learn from other countries.
Yeah, we've talked about Australia's fire danger rating system and California's home hardening techniques.
Yeah, those are good examples. Finland also has a really interesting approach.
Finland.
Yeah, they have very few wildfires.
Okay.
And a lot of that is because of their community forestry model.
What is that?
Well, it's based on this idea called every man's right,
Okay.
which means that anyone can go into the forests.
For anything.
Well, for things like foraging or camping.
Oh,
So it's about encouraging people to use the forest.
and to appreciate them.
Exactly, to connect with nature and feel responsible for taking care of it.
That's a really cool idea.
It is, and it seems to be working for them. They also do controlled burns
Right.
and get the community involved in all aspects of forest management.
So it's really a holistic approach.
It is, and it's very effective.
Yeah.
It's a good reminder that sometimes the simplest solutions are the best.
I like that. But even with all these efforts, wildfires are still a big threat.
They are, definitely.
And the consequences can be really devastating.
No doubt about it. And even with the best plans,
Right.
sometimes fires are going to happen.
Yeah, you can't prevent everything.
Exactly. So it's super important to have help ready.
For the people affected by the fires.
Exactly, for those communities that are hit hard.
We were talking before about the different organizations that are helping.
Yeah.
What are some of the main ways that they're helping people cope and rebuild?
Well, they do a lot of different things.
Okay.
They provide emergency shelter,
Right.
food, medical care
Of course.
right after a fire. They also help people financially
Gotcha.
to rebuild their homes and businesses.
That's so important. It's good to know that there are people out there who are dedicated to helping.
It is. It's really heartwarming to see that kind of compassion and resilience.
It really is. And it's important to remember that the impact of these fires goes beyond just the physical damage. You know, people lose their homes, their livelihoods.
Right, their whole lives are turned upside down.
There's the emotional trauma, too.
Exactly. And that's why it's so important to provide mental health services,
Oh, of course.
counseling, things like that.
To help people process what's happened.
Yeah, to help them heal and start to move forward.
This deep dive has been really eye-opening.
It has.
I feel like we've just scratched the surface of this issue.
Yeah, it's really complex.
Well, we've learned a lot about the causes of wildfires, the consequences, and all the amazing things that people are doing to fight them.
Yeah, there's some really inspiring work being done out there.
And hopefully our listener has a better understanding of this problem now.
I hope so. It's such an important issue.
It is. And I think it's also sparked a sense of urgency. Like,
Yeah.
we need to do something.
We do. This is a global challenge.
It is.
And it needs a global response. Everyone can do something.
Even small things.
Absolutely. Every action makes a difference.
So to our listener,
Yeah.
we ask you, what will you do to be part of the solution?
It's up to all of us to protect our forests,
Yeah.
our communities, our planet. The future depends on it.
Okay, so we're back and ready to talk about some actual examples of how people are fighting these wildfires.
Yeah, sure.
It's pretty amazing to see how creative and dedicated people are.
It is. It's really inspiring. We talked about community involvement earlier.
Right.
And I think the Joint Forest Management Program in Himachal Pradesh is a perfect example of that.
Yeah, they've had some really good results with that program.
Yeah.
Remind me how it works again.
Well, they basically bring the local communities and the forest department together
Okay.
to manage the forests together as a team.
I see.
So they train local people in everything from preventing fires to actually putting them out.
So it's like they're really taking ownership,
Exactly.
protecting their own environment.
It's about empowering them giving them the knowledge and tools
Yeah.
to take care of their own forests.
It makes a lot of sense. And it's been working.
It has, yeah. The areas where they've been doing this,
Yeah.
they've seen a big drop in the number of fires.
That's great to hear.
Yeah, it shows you what can happen when you get the local people involved.
For sure. Now, we also talked about technology.
Oh, yeah.
What are they doing with that in Himachal Pradesh?
Well, they're using satellites to spot fires really early on.
Okay.
Like the Forest Survey of India.
Right.
They're using satellites to find those hot spots.
So they can react quickly.
Yeah, it's like having a lookout in the sky.
Constantly watching.
24/7. They're also using drones now.
Drones. For fires.
Yeah, they can fly over those areas that are hard to reach,
Right.
and they can get a lot of really good information.
What kind of information?
Well, they can tell you exactly where the fire is,
Okay.
how big it is, how much damage it's doing, all that stuff.
Wow.
And some drones even have these special cameras,
Yeah.
thermal cameras that can see heat.
So they can see through the smoke and stuff?
Yeah, they can spot hot spots that people might miss.
That's incredible.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing technology.
Yeah.
But technology isn't enough on its own.
Right. You need people, too.
Exactly. And we can learn a lot from other countries.
Right, like Australia with their fire danger rating system,
Mm-hmm.
and California with their home hardening techniques.
Yeah, those are great examples. Finland's approach is also really interesting.
Finland, what are they doing?
They have a really low rate of wildfires.
Okay.
And a big part of that is because of their community forestry model.
Okay.
It's based on this idea called every man's right.
Okay. What's that?
It means anyone can go into the forests.
Really? For anything?
Well, for things like foraging and camping.
How interesting.
So it's about encouraging people to use the forests.
And to appreciate them.
Exactly, to connect with nature and feel responsible for taking care of it.
I like that a lot. It's simple, but it makes sense.
It does. And it seems to be working for them. They also do controlled burns.
Yeah, to clear out the underbrush.
Exactly. And they get the whole community involved in managing the forests.
So it's a really holistic approach.
It is, and it's very effective. It shows you that sometimes the simplest solutions are the best.
Absolutely. But even with all this work, wildfires are still a serious threat.
They are for sure.
And the damage they cause can be devastating.
No doubt about it.
So even with the best prevention and management, sometimes fires are just going to happen.
It's true. You can't predict everything.
Yeah. So it's really important to have support systems in place.
Absolutely.
For those communities that are affected.
For the people who lose their homes and livelihoods.
Exactly. We talked before about the different organizations that are helping.
Yeah.
What are some of the ways that they're supporting people to cope and rebuild?
Well, they provide things like emergency shelter,
Right.
food, medical care,
Of course, the essentials.
right after a fire.
Yeah.
And they also help people financially
Okay.
to rebuild their homes and their businesses.
That's so important.
It is. It's really crucial. It's amazing to see how much compassion and resilience there is out there.
Yeah, people helping each other.
Exactly. And it's important to remember that the impact of these fires
Yeah,
goes way beyond just the physical damage.
that's true. What about the emotional impact?
Yeah, people lose their homes, their livelihoods, sometimes even loved ones.
It's a huge trauma.
It is. It's a lot to process. That's why it's so important to have mental health services.
Of course, counseling and therapy.
Yeah, to help people cope with the trauma and start to heal.
This deep dive has been really amazing.
It has been.
We've learned so much about wildfires.
Yeah, it's such a complex issue.
It is, but we've explored the causes, the consequences, and all the incredible work that's being done around the world.
Yeah, there are so many people dedicated to finding solutions.
It's really inspiring, and hopefully our listeners are feeling that too.
I hope so. It's an issue that affects all of us.
It does. And I think this deep dive has really highlighted the urgency of the situation.
It has. We all need to be doing our part.
Absolutely. Everyone can make a difference.
Even small actions can have a big impact, whether it's being careful with fire,
Yeah.
supporting organizations working to protect our forests,
Right.
or speaking up about climate change. We all have a role to play.
So to our listeners, we ask you, what will you do to be part of the solution?
The future of our forests, our communities,